They were children forced to toil in factories, robbed of their youth and innocence. Through AI restoration, we breathe life into their forgotten faces, witness the struggles, resilience, and injustice faced by these young workers, whose stories deserve to be told. This is Mary Molly Carter, an 8-year-old girl working in a cotton mill in Lancashire. Molly's job required her to sweep the factory floor and maintain the machinery, tasks that exposed her to dangerous equipment. Her hands were raw from constant use, and the factory conditions led to chronic fatigue. In her colorized portrait, Molly's eyes reveal the exhaustion that consumed her youth. She was one of many children who worked in factories during the Industrial Revolution, forced into labor instead of receiving an education or living a carefree childhood. This is Samuel Sam Green, a 12-year-old boy who worked in a coal mine in the Midlands. Sam's job involved pushing carts of coal through narrow, suffocating tunnels. The work was physically demanding, and Sam's small body was well suited to the cramped conditions. His colorized portrait shows the weary expression of a young boy whose life was consumed by the demands of industry. Sam's future was determined by the mine, and like many children, he was denied the joys of childhood and forced into labor at an early age. This is Clara Claire Jackson, a young girl working in a match factory. Claire's job was to dip matchsticks into chemicals, a task that exposed her to dangerous toxins. Despite the risks, Claire worked long hours in poor conditions to support her family. Her portrait, colorized to reveal the strain on her face, tells the story of a child robbed of her health and youth. Like many other factory children, Claire's future was shaped by factory work instead of education, and her health was compromised due to the hazardous nature of the job. This is William Will Thompson, a 10-year-old boy working in a textile mill in Yorkshire, England. Will's job required him to carry bundles of cotton to different areas of the factory, often exposing him to dangerous machinery. In his colorized portrait, Will's eyes reflect the exhaustion of a child forced to work long hours instead of playing or going to school. His face shows the silent suffering of a generation of children whose youth was stolen by the factory machine, with no time to dream of a better future. This is Ellen Ellie Hall, a 9-year-old girl from a poor family, working in a cotton mill in Lancashire. Ellie's job was to help spin and twist cotton fibers, a dangerous task in an overcrowded, poorly ventilated factory. Her colorized portrait reveals a tired and vulnerable young girl whose life revolved around the mill, not education or childhood joys. Like many others, Ellie spent long hours on her feet, her body worn down by the demands of industrial labor. Her face is a testament to the resilience of factory children. This is Robert Bobby Curtis, a young boy who worked in a coal mine, a common job for children during the Industrial Revolution. Bobby's task was to push heavy carts of coal through dark, narrow tunnels, exposing him to both physical and respiratory dangers. His colorized portrait shows a boy whose youth was consumed by grueling labor in a toxic environment. Bobby, like many children, was deprived of a normal childhood and forced to work long hours for little pay. His story symbolizes the plight of working-class children in the early industrial age. This is Margaret Maggie Ward, a hard-working girl from a poor family in Glasgow. At just 11 years old, Maggie worked in a textile factory where she operated dangerous machines. Her job was to ensure the spinning machinery ran smoothly, often without any breaks. In her colorized portrait, Maggie's face reveals the fatigue of a child who had no choice but to work to help support her family. The factory consumed her childhood, and her story represents the many young lives lost to the industrial labor system, where children's well-being was secondary to profits. This is Henry Harry Daniels, a 10-year-old boy working in a pottery factory. Harry's job involved carrying heavy clay materials and assisting with the molding process. His small frame was no match for the physical demands of the factory, and he often worked long hours in unsafe conditions. In his colorized portrait, Harry's tired eyes tell the story of a childhood lost to industrial labor. Harry was one of the many children whose innocence was stolen in exchange for a meager wage, his health and well-being sacrificed for the benefit of the factory system. This is Susanna Souza Mitchell, a young girl who worked in a match factory, where the harsh chemicals exposed her to toxic fumes and caused severe health issues. Souza's job was to dip matchsticks into poisonous phosphorus, a process that led to the painful condition known as phossy jaw. Her colorized portrait reflects the suffering endured by factory girls like her, who were denied a childhood due to labor conditions. Souza's life was tragically shaped by the factory, where she spent most of her days working instead of playing with her peers. This is Clara Claire Wright, a young girl who worked in a textile mill, operating dangerous spinning machines. Despite her tender age, Claire spent hours each day in the factory, her small hands forced to move at a rapid pace to keep up with the machines. In her colorized portrait, Clara's face shows a deep weariness, reflecting the heavy toll factory life took on children. Her childhood was spent in the shadows of industrialism, her spirit drained by the work she was forced to do to help her family survive. This is James Fisher, a 10-year-old boy who worked in a coal mine in northern England. Alongside adults, James toiled in the dark, dangerous depths, carrying coal to the surface in narrow, suffocating tunnels. His portrait, Colorized, reveals the frailty of a child subjected to grueling labor in conditions that would be considered inhumane today. James's early life was spent in the harshest of environments, with little time for schooling or play. His story represents the countless children who were sacrificed to fuel the Industrial Revolution. This is Thomas "Tommy" Clayton, a young boy who worked in a factory making glass bottles. He was responsible for carrying hot glass from one station to another, a dangerous job for a child. The factory's intense heat and noise were unbearable, but Tommy had no choice but to endure. His colorized portrait captures a determined young boy whose life was consumed by factory labor. Tommy's story is emblematic of the child workers whose innocence was stolen by the relentless demands of the industrial economy.